Congratulations. I have talked to a lot of showrunners over the years. There is nothing, perhaps even harder than the pilot, is to write the ending of a show that has become beloved with so many characters, and we're going to talk about all of that. But before I get going, I'm going to introduce these characters. I'm sure that most of the audience knows that this is Brian Koppelman, this is David Levien, this is Beth Schacter, and these are the hardworking showrunners that have made the world of Billions spin for the last 7 years. And Beth signed on in season 5. We'll talk about how that happened. I heard an interesting backstory that we will get into. But before we dive into all the dish, they're going to tell us everything. I really have to, in all sincerity, folks, there's a lot of trust going on here. We are really, we know that you all are fans of the show, and as fans of the show, I know I'm going to do my best mom guilt job here. As good, big fans of the show, I know you're not going to race out of here and start tweeting or any social media, even your friends, just lord over them. I know what happens. I saw it on the big screen. I heard them talk. Just tell them to call you Friday
Friday
at
night,
like 10 o'clock Eastern, 10:05 Eastern, and then you can dish. You can write your 3,000 word screed, write it and post it that night, but don't blow it for other fans, please. I know you know this, but I just hear me and know that all the fans that have loved it, I firmly believe that spoilers are a menace. And as a fan of things, you want to experience as the dramatists wanted it to unfold. So with that PSA, I know everybody is going to make like Scooter, find their inner conscience and not spoil this show. Anyway, again, congratulations. It is a difficult thing to bring a show. I mean, it's hard enough to get a show on the air, let alone 7 seasons. I'll throw this out as a jump ball. How do you feel? How do you feel watching this episode with the audience?
That felt awesome watching with all of you and seeing, we made this season of the show, we made a decision early on that we were going to make this season of the show for true Billions fans, for the people who watch the episodes more than once, who catch our references, who notice every song, and who, we were like, we want to make the final season that we'd want to see as Billions obsessives. And seeing you all get the little lines and the jokes and the moments and the emotion, feeling the emotional resonances is incredibly satisfying. And I also want to say to people, because Dave and I were talking about this earlier tonight, you're something of a good luck charm for us, as you know, Cynthia, because the one journalist that we met with before the week that Billions was going to premiere, we had dinner with you. And so to have you, and you then wrote this amazing piece about it, and the show was on the cover of Variety magazine. And so you have been a part of this from the very beginning. And so thanks for doing this and flying in from LA to do this with us. It really means a lot.
You are so welcome. David?
Well, first of all, thank you to the 92nd Street Y for having us. This is a vaunted locale, and it's really an honor to be here. We started a while back making lists, I think, in our little writer's room of all the characters that we had to have in the final season, and then in the final episode, characters that needed goodbye moments. And it became quite a list and quite a choreography to put it together. But
you just beautifully. They felt earned. They didn't feel like, oh, we're going to shoehorn this person in, and it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still processing, but I think it's funny. When I was watching it tonight, I forgot that the line, "That's like $1 billion in Indiana," was on the board. I think day one. Like, we knew that was where we were driving to, and it never came off the board, and that never happens. And so I think it's just fun to see that all. It was really the coalescing thing.
Yeah. And it was fun to hear this room full of people know all about the financial stuff. I mean, we're in New York, so maybe there's a lot of people who do it for a living, but I'd like to think that everybody got educated over the course of the seasons.
Well, I just want to say, so the show started mid-January 2016. Variety magazine, a very authoritative voice of entertainment news and analysis, let me tell you. Variety magazine said, can Showtime's big bet on a Wall Street drama pay off? And we did persist with the Wall Street drama until we got a little smarter about what the real core of the show. But I really learned what a hedge fund was, in part because of this show. But since January 2016, oh my God, let's see, Stephen A. Cohen, major hedge fund guy, now owns the Mets. Let's see, we've had the rise of a personality called Donald Trump. Let's see, we've had the rise and fall and perhaps rise again of crypto. We've had meme stocks. We've had Ken Griffin, the hedge fund manager, having literally the best year ever. So, Wall Street is not slowing down. Let's see. We've had Ray Dalio is left Bridgewater. I mean, it is just so much. And the crypto thing, and not the SDNY, but the Eastern District is very busy with a very big criminal trial involving a character that I have a suspicion might show up in one of these in future projects, perhaps from some of these. Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm obsessed with this story. I am absolutely obsessed with this story. But anyway, I mean, it just goes to show the passage of time. And 7 seasons, I mean, in this day and age, that's a really long run. So, congratulations. It's really hard to sustain shows these days that long.
Well, thanks. And I mean, as you rattle off that list, which all those things you said are true, it's been fascinating to see the way that billionaires have reacted to the show. Because some of them spoke to us off the record before the show was on the air, but at first, as the show was coming out, they all made it a point to say, I'm not like that, the show's not about me, I'd never do it. And then
Never talk to those guys.
as soon as they saw the way Axe filled out a leather jacket, guys that are in the papers were coming up to him at the U.S. Open going, your character's fucking based on me. And so we would constantly get fueled by hearing the stories. Dave lives in Connecticut somewhere, and I live in the city, and...
Thanks for not doxing me.
That's why, yeah. Well, these are strange times, you know what I mean? I don't want to lead people to your door in Westport, but the thing is
Now we're north of Westport.
The thing is that we both started to observe the way that hedge funds and hedge fund managers, and then people who worked with those hedge fund managers, how they lived, and also how they started to grab a kind of cultural power. And we saw it in this micro place, and we realized that it was extending. And in noticing it, we decided to really try to dive in. And we had faith all along that the narrative, if we could just get people to understand it, what was at stake, that they would want to, because Axe, and we also noticed, as you know, what the prosecutors were doing and how they were using their offices for personal advancement. And we were able, I think, to stay connected to these people because our actors were these actors are so incredible and so charismatic and so powerful and so inspiring to us as writers that it made these figures who knew we were going to tell stories that were kind of, in certain ways, unflattering about how they conducted themselves. They still wanted to tell us everything because they wanted to see Bobby Axelrod acted out, And so that was, and that just reaffirmed our whole feeling about all this, And I say David and me because it was the two of us from the beginning, and as you know, the pilot Andrew Ross Sorkin helped us with. But as we were getting deep into it, we really wanted someone we knew was an incredible storyteller and really understood characters to come and help us. And that's when we reached out to our very close friend, Beth Schacter, who it's hard to really tell you all the impact that it had when Beth came in toward the beginning of the 5th season and the last 3 seasons of the show just wouldn't be anything at all like they are without Beth's help.
And very true. And I heard that, in fact, you guys were real champions and supporters of her long before you worked together. Beth, can you?
Yeah, they've
Kinda
known me
tell.
a long time. To say any, I mean, no, so they've known me a very long time since I started out in theater and then became an indie filmmaker, and they were supportive of my indie film. And then I like to tell this story because I'm not the person that was wrong. They offered me a job in season 2, and we were about to leave New York. And do you remember this? And we were about to move back to LA, and it was in South Carolina, like on vacation with my family. And you guys called, and you were like, "Hey, come work on the show." And I talked it over with my husband, who they love it. There's no bad feeling there. And he's like, "Yeah, that show's not gonna last. We can't stay in New York for that."
Ben.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe you're right." So I went back to LA, and he was really wrong, and we like to remind him of that. He was very, very wrong. And thankfully, he was very, very wrong.
But
So,
I will tell you
yes.
that this final season would not have, for sure, Beth really helped. But the second half of the season, it was a lot of the 3 of us really figuring out how to deliver this together and figuring out how to, we had great writers who helped us throughout, but a lot of nights ended with the 3 of us and some coffee and tea trying to just figure out how these characters should resolve their relationships with each other.
All right. Well, with that cue, one thing I want to say before I forget is kudos to your DP, because I have seen many TV episodes of television on a big screen that do not look their best on the big screen. This one, you could see every pore, you could see every bit of the, I mean, I missed the credit, but kudos.
Yeah, it was
Neil Berger was your
Neil
director.
directed it.
Neil,
Was
and
it Brad, or
must have been
was
Brad on the
Smith,
last one. We have a
Brad Smith.
team of incredible cinematographers who we're just blessed with, and an incredible, I mean, just our grips, our gaffers, like top to bottom, you can't ask for a better crew in New York City than these
Incredible
folks.
New York crew that just, those guys just, and women pulled us through impossible conditions and the longest hours with complete dedication. We love them.
And we need to shout, Neil Berger, who you mentioned, who directed this, is...
And directed the pilot.
He directed the first episode, too. And he's somebody that we've worked with for 25 years on and off. We produced his first 3 movies. But he's directed movies like The Illusionist and Limitless, and just a world-class film director. And because of the writer's strike, we couldn't be on set for the last episode at all. And so Neil and a producer named Mike Harrop really made sure that the show would look and feel the way that it's supposed to feel, and they really delivered.
Was that agonizing? I mean, to not, this is your baby.
Yeah, on an emotional level, it was horrible because, you know, it was 7 seasons, but it was over the course of 8 years. We had to take an entire year off during the pandemic, you know, for the sort of the safety of the actors, really, who are going to work without masks, and to go through like all the life changes that happen for everybody on the cast and crew over the course of 8 years, and then have to stop short and not get to be there for the like the final lap was really tough. And you know, on a professional level, you want the final episode to come out well.
Yeah.
But as Brian said, Neil Berger, a DGA member who was able to work under the contract then, knew exactly the right tone of the show. So worked out great.
And yeah, none of us would ever cross our own picket line, so there was no question of being there, but it was, listen, sometimes a worthy fight calls for sacrifice, and ours was a small one compared to the ones that crews and so many other people had to make. So it was very emotionally difficult, but it's what had to be done.
I hear you, and we just want to send, I think, agreement that we all just want to send the most positive vibes to the good folks at SAG-AFTRA who are sitting down
Yes,
with the
tomorrow.
companies tomorrow,
Get it done.
and, you know, and just to shout out, I mean, obviously, Damien Lewis, Paul Giamatti, Maggie Siff, Corey Stoll, I mean, just incredible performances. and
Condola
it-
Rashad, Asia Kate
Oh, my
Dillon, David Costable, for
I mean-
sure. Jeffrey DeMunn.
Jeff
How great is Chuck
DeMunn.
Senior? Seeing you guys react to Chuck Senior made, that's Jeff DeMunn. And to me, the one crime, people always ask about award stuff, and we truly do not care, but the fact that Chuck Senior, Jeffrey DeMunn, has not been nominated for an Emmy Award is a crime. That guy brings it. He is nothing like that character.
He is a delightful, wonderful theater guy who was in
A gentle human being.
he was in the original production of K2. And he'll just talk to you about theater directors. He's not that man at all.
He
And
takes
he's
long, lonely
so-
walks in the woods and chops his own wood
with
for his house
beautiful-
upstate.
With his beautiful dogs. You guys, he's a perfect man.
And working with great
Sorry.
actors is amazing. We had this line in the pilot script where we said that Chuck Sr.'s never had a bashful moment in his life. And in the second episode or third episode, we had written something where Chuck Sr. reacted a certain way. And it's the only time over 7 seasons, and Jeff, that actor, called us. And he said, I circled that he never had a bashful moment thing, and I think you guys might have written a moment that's a little bashful. And I don't fucking think the guy would be like that. And he just put the voice on, and we were like, as you wish, sir. And from that moment on, it was the North Star of how to write the character. That guy's a genius, and really the sweetest human being on earth.
And Toby Leonard Moore in those first couple seasons was such a crucial character, such
Connerty,
a
yeah,
punching
for
bag
sure.
It
for
was
Chuck.
great to have him back. And, when you make a long-running show, you learn a lot of stuff about the people in their personal lives. Like Dola Rashad is fluent in Italian, so she had to speak Italian at some point. Damian Lewis is a great tennis player, so he had to get out there and play tennis with Maria Sharapova. Toby Leonard Moore made the mistake of telling us that he worked his way through school once as a teppanyaki chef. And we did not forget that. We carried that around for years, and that was amazing.
Pulled it out of your back pocket.
Also, you have never seen, I will say, we all work very hard, the three of us, on lots of aspects of the show. And, sometimes that means staying up all night doing rewrites. Sometimes that means getting there really early in the morning for a rehearsal, or, going even to wardrobe and making sure the costumes are right. But you've never seen a human being care more about the way a shrimp was cut than this man did. He obsessed over the rehearsals of the hibachi in a way
That was in his first episode of the season, by the way. It wasn't the one during the strike.
No. Well, then it was all set by then.
yeah,
But the first episode, in episode 5, I think, when he comes back and first does it, because Toby called us and he goes, "Oh, you guys really heard me when I said that thing." And we said, yeah, we listened. And he goes, "I haven't done it in quite some time." And Dave just said, "Start practicing." And so Toby would send tapes, and Dave would go, "The tapes are in." And I just thought it was the greatest thing, how into it he was. I was like, "That is your baby, buddy. That's yours." But it's so worth it. It came out.
He
just
had one of those
incredible.
carts in his apartment, and he wore his wrists out from throwing around the pepper shakers and stuff.
And that damp, carpeted, I think, Queens joint that was in the middle of
Shogun.
nowhere. Oh God, it was so fantastic with big vats of fat.
I think
the
on the
ceiling.
day we were shooting the episode 5, I came up to you in there and I was like, "See, he's amazing. It was all that time was worth it." And you were like, "Stop making fun of me." But it was. It was so worth it.
This thing that sticks out in my memory. We did a panel at another venue in Midtown, or in a Midtown venue, and Condola Rashad. Every time Toby opened his mouth and that Australian accent came out, Condola started giggling, and halfway through, Toby says, "You do know I'm Australian." It was hysterical, but it showed so much of the love and the camaraderie that was even
Beth,
earlier.
do you want to talk about the way, because Beth's been, so one of the things is that when you're show running, other than making sure that the teppanyaki stuff works, is you have to be on set and oversee shooting. And a lot of the time, the last couple of years, that fell to Beth, and Beth really took that on. But you want to talk about you've been on a lot of shows, Shax.
Yes, I have.
About the camaraderie of these actors and how they work together.
This is one of the saddest things of the SAG-AFTRA strike is we can't just hang out and watch these shows with them and celebrate with them because they're incredible. But these are just extraordinary humans and kind. And when Kareem was remember we got Kareem at that.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came to that rotunda that was supposed to be the rotunda. That was supposed to be Grant's tomb. That was actually just in a university somewhere.
Yeah.
And every actor on the show just came to hang out.
On a Saturday.
On a Saturday with their kids. It was like the greatest day of their lives, and they all just wanted to talk to him and hang out with him. And then he left, and then they kept staying. We had to kick them out. Like, why are you but they just want to hang out with each other. the best part of my day is when I get to just go sit where they're holding and just like shoot the shit with them and talk about their lives and read their scripts and all. They couldn't be more delightful, and you guys did an incredible job because none of them play the same note. They're all a symphony together. So every actor is a different note, and every actor is as good as the last one. I mean, it's extraordinary.
I also just want to point out that these two, this was your second television show ever, right? You did something earlier for, was it ESPN?
Yeah, we made a poker drama called Tilt when ESPN was trying to do dramatic shows.
Right.
A really fun show if you've
Thank
seen
you.
it.
There you
Someone
go.
watched every episode, but sadly it's my son, so it doesn't count.
But to be, I mean, this is, with all due respect, like, I mean, this was Showtime, this was big leagues, big actor, and for this to go again, and especially in this day and age, I mean, 7 years is really something. All right, I could tell the audience is probably getting frustrated. I'm legally obligated to ask you a couple of, like, finale questions. Okay. When did you, at what point in the course of the series would you say that you had the ending in mind?
It's fairly late because we didn't know until pretty close to starting the season that we were going to definitely have Damien back. So that we weren't walking around for years because, you know, he left the show at the end of season 5. He had these things happen in his life, and then he said that he was willing to come back. So that reignited the thinking on the Axe plot.
We
lines.
knew, he had said to us when he had to, you know, all the things in his personal life and he had to go, he had said that his intention was to come back he would come back for a couple of episodes the final season. So we had been thinking, okay, if we only have him for 2 episodes? And then when we spoke with him and he said he would do half the season, that really allowed us to do it. But the other thing is because we didn't know that that Axe wasn't going to be available after 5. I think that we always knew we were driving toward the ending of season 5. The ending of season 5 was how Chuck and Axe
Him
were
being
going to
destroyed.
How Chuck and Axe were going to end in a way, whenever that was. That could have been season 7, right? But that was going to be the thing. But Damien told us before anyone else. The two of us knew 2.5 years before what was going on, and you know, sadly, his wife passed away.
His wife, Helen, a
we
beautiful
knew how sick
actor.
she was, and she's an incredible person, and actor, and mother, and wife, and all of it. And we knew, so we were able to say to him, of course, and we will bring stuff forward, and we will make it all work for season 5. But then the three of us, and teams of writers, but largely the 3 of us, sat around and figured out, okay, these 2 seasons, 6 and 7, what's the ideal way that it can go? And the fact that we ended up getting to do it in the ideal way. That
Yeah.
Showtime supported us in shooting in England, that each piece of that was able to work.
Yeah, and by the end of season 6, as Mike Prince becomes more powerful, he started to announce these darker hues to his character in a way, you know, almost involuntarily after we just spent time with like a billionaire in power in the world, maybe a billionaire. And it started to become clear towards the end of that season that this was a guy who was like quietly starting to alienate people and was going to take a lot to bring down, but it started to feel like that's where we had to go.
What
So I
could
mean,
have
at
possibly-
Mar-a-Lago, 100 million is like being a billionaire.
I was just going to say, what could have possibly inspired that? Did you, at the outset, did you have, at the beginning, were you just trying to get to the next episode, or did you have in your mind, like, a long-term arc
At the beginning of which?
at the beginning of the show, like season 1?
No, at season 1, we did know. Dave and I knew the first 3 seasons who was going to win and how, basically. And we would come in at the beginning of each season, and we would say to the room, "These are the kind of big ideas." But then the episode to episode stories, that stuff is the grindy, really difficult stuff to do. The kind of, because character tells you, the primal character motivations kind of tells you something about where they're driving and what the giant obstacle is and what that means about endings. But the interstitial elements are the challenging ones in a way, episode to episode. And then we started to understand how we always, like I say, understood where it should head towards the climax with Chuck
And you
Max
have-
and Wendy. And we can't not talk about, Wendy to us was often the main character of the show. She wins the first season. And her journey was really central to all of us the whole time. And so I would say that's the other thing. It is Chuck and Axe were on the, but the secret thing to us, and we were so happy when people started caring about it so much, was that Maggie Siff is a superstar of an actor, just an incredible talent and an amazing person, and allowed us to have Wendy be, Wendy drives the action of this season. And Wendy drives the action of so much of what happens over 7 seasons. And she's so selfless in the way she does it as an actor that you hardly are aware of the fact that you're in her point of view constantly, but you are.
She's incredible. In this show, in other shows that she's performed in, and I've seen her on stage. If you have the chance to see her in theater, go. She's really incredibly, very, very curious to see where she goes next. Now I have to ask, okay, so Wendy and Axe, that has been, I think you guys showed so much discipline as writers. The cheesiest thing would have been, a big wet kiss or something that
Agreed.
that
A
leaves
lot of
us.
co-signing here with that, yeah.
But so let me ask you this: Did you know in your minds that this was going to be a platonic, deep friendship, but platonic?
It's not platonic. It's incredibly romantic. They just don't kiss.
Yes,
That's
David.
the secret sauce of the two of them, is that they're truly connected in their souls. It's just not sexual.
They do have a certain type of love affair, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, but people bring to it all of their baggage. So we had, I'm not even sure this was, we had someone who worked on the show who insisted that they had slept together. Truly, to our faces, was just like, well, when they slept together, and we're like, what are you even? And he dug his heels in, but for the audience, they're having an emotional reaction to
Not a writer, that was
Not a writer.
obviously an executive.
That was that was an executive,
ahead.
employee of the company. But it is incredible because that's the lesson though, is like you don't need to get these people to have wet kisses for the audience to be fully invested in their relationship. It's actually just would be ancillary to the relationship. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not additive.
writers pitched it at us all the time.
All the time.
But we felt like from the beginning, we had decided that wasn't going to happen, because how do you keep the show going? It's really hard to keep the show going if you allow that to happen. And it also felt like they each understood what it was about the other that made them better and what it was that could make them worse, and they didn't want to give in to that. And it's part of Wendy's strength.
It's almost like the breakup and get together and breakup and get together was Axe and Rhodes, and Wendy was the kind of all-knowing, all-seeing. Yeah, it's really a credit to the world that you built. And I just have to, like, all the incredible characters, Mafee, just all the great characters that you built in and allowed them to be more than two-dimensional characters.
Well, these actors
Yeah.
It is
are
New York,
so great.
after all.
We were talking
it's a
about
good
Asia.
but just say.
I was just gonna say, like, Asia, my first day on set, we had given them this really kind of, not horrendous, but really tough speech. And they just did it. And I knew that it didn't align with Asia's beliefs, but it aligned with Taylor's beliefs. And so they don't care. They're there to have the gift of an actor who will carry the character and just say, that's what I do, is incredible. And they're just so good at it.
Oh, that's such a great point. Like, that's another thing. Because although Asia obviously was incredible on Orange is the New Black, but they really came to prominence and became famous from this show. And one might think that Asia Kate Dillon and Taylor Mason are similar, but they are really nothing alike in most ways. In terms of sense of humor and empathy. And it's another beautiful thing. I would say, you mentioned Mafee, and it's a good New York actor story, which is that we wrote that part for Dan Soder, who brings so much life to Maffei. He's so funny and sharp. Dan was down to the final 3 people to play Connerty. And, but Toby Leonard Moore comes in and he's this very experienced actor and incredible. And in fact, we'd offered it to Toby. They weren't able to make a deal. And that's when we said to Dan, who was our friend, come read for this. And he got really close. And then they were able to make a deal with Toby. But we had maybe a 1-line part in the pilot. And we said to Soder, it's your choice. Because a pilot's a payday. Like Dan could have made some money for the pilot. And he was working at Dos Toros at the time, right?
He was a waiter still.
He was a waiter
Doing
still.
stand-up comedy.
And we were like, you could come do this episode and like pay 2 months rent or 3 months rent, but it'll be only in the pilot and you won't come back. If you roll the dice and don't do the pilot, we will write you a part that will exist, but there's no guarantee that'll happen. The pilot could die.
Right.
And Dan said, no, I believe in you guys. I won't do the pilot and find me something. And we said, done. And so we wrote 2 lines from Maffei in the second episode, and Dan came in and just destroyed, and then he was off and running, and he did, 50 episodes of the show, and people love him. He gets followed around. He's become this very famous comedian, obviously, but also people just love him as Maffei. Mm-hmm. And he's one of 2 actors we let improvise ever in the history of the show.
Is that right? Who's the other one?
Actually, the other one is Ava Victor, who plays Ryan.
Well, yeah, we wrote that stuff for her. And also Doc, of course.
Oh, Rick Hoffman, who you all know
yeah.
from Suits. Occasionally, at table read, Rick will say something, we'll say fine. And Ava Victor, twice we had improv. Though that's another, the thing about both Ava, who plays Ryan, and Dan Soder, who plays Maffei, is that both those characters were written for those people. They were designed to be very close to kind of like their public persona, if not who they are as people, really, but their public persona.
This finale, really, the rhythm of the show, it's almost like screwball comedy meets, high finance meets a great soap. In this episode, there was a lot of people, obviously, not surprisingly, a lot of reflection, a lot of like, who are you? Who were you when I first met you? Who are you now? Obviously, people made choices. One key line that stood out to me, especially on this third viewing, was when Scooter tells Prince, men like you always do. So that to me tells me that, of course, we have not seen the last of Mike Prince. He will rise again out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, or somewhere there. I've been to Fort Wayne. It's a lovely place. I saw a wonderful minor league baseball game there. It was a lot of fun. But in Indiana, that's a lot of scratch that will go around. But I thought you did a really good job of in a fast-moving plot. You gave people a moment, and you did give, especially on a second and third viewing, you recognize the characters we are on a journey with them, and you gave them. The easiest thing I won't say the easiest thing, but we've seen in finales, people will take a sharp detour, and you respected the audience. You gave, as you said, you really gave. But tell me about that process and how that was for developing that.
Well, yeah, like Brian said at the top, I think we really wanted to make it work for the people who cared about the show, and we felt like we knew the audience because there's so much feedback on social media and other ways of communicating with the fans that, we just didn't want them to leave disappointed. And, as far as Mike Prince goes, that's a guy who just doesn't feel like he's ever going to be laid low. Like, he feels like he's going to get back up and win the fight. And, kudos to Corey Stoll, by the way, who
this is the best work I've ever seen
ended
him
up
do
facing
in
down
this finale.
like this entire cast and being like the odd man out storytelling wise, but like doing it with such ferocity and dignity and not sort of shrinking in the moment. As an actor, that was like really deep and brave work, I think.
And the other thing is, we are those fans of the show and these actors, and I'll say, we had to indulge ourselves in the desire to see these people get to have the moment of accepting who each other who they are and who each other is, right?
All
And
their
Daniel-
many flaws.
Yes, for who they are fully. And Daniel Breaker, Scooter, one of 2 times that someone came in and we ended auditions basically, actually there were 3 times. One is Dr. Gus, which I'd forgotten. When he came in for an audition, we canceled every other person who was gonna come in because he was so great. From earlier seasons. But both with Dola, when Dola came in to read Sacker, we literally turned to the casting director and said, there's no need to see anyone else. And when Daniel Breaker came in to read Scooter, it was like this realization that we had, he's a genius, that guy, and he can do anything. He's a world-class chef also, and is just a brilliant person to talk to, and a genius of an actor. You know, if you saw him in Hamilton, it was mind-blowing. Or Perfect Strange, what's the other one?
Passing Strange.
Passing Strange,
yes.
incredible. And so like of course we wanted to have Scooter have those moments with both Wags and with all of them, with his nephew and with Wags and with Prince, you know, to separate. And tell us who Prince is in a way.
Yeah.
He knows him best.
The actor who played Philip also. He's
Tony Goines.
He's going
Tony.
places.
He's amazing. I guess we were maybe sort of semi in lockdown. So normally you sort of test the actors together to do like a chemistry read to make sure that, because they have all these scenes together. And he had to do it on this Zoom. And he was on the Zoom just like the most electric, wonderful, connected kid, just like amazing. I mean, he's not really a kid.
Graduated from Juilliard.
He had just graduated from Juilliard. And so when he came to set, because we have so many Juilliard actors, they all yell out their year number. Like, you know, I don't know if you know this, they number their years, like 1 through whatever it is. So like they would just, it's like 33, and he's like, I'm 42. Like they all just speak in this weird Juilliard lingo that I've never heard before. I didn't go to Juilliard. But Tony, yeah, wonderful.
You know, we'll talk about the song cues in a minute, but I want to talk about the restaurants. This
Sure.
show is, I mean, you have done so many great locations at restaurants, highlighting great New York eateries. I've literally taken recommendations at times in terms of, you know, places I should go. Was that organic? Was that something that developed? I do remember Giamatti told me early on, I don't know if it was for the first story but he told me that you loved when you saw him eating, and you loved the liveliness with which he ate, and so you started writing him eating scenes.
We did. I mean, you know, the restaurant placement in the show was organic because we recognized that what restaurants you could get into and what table you could get was a sign of your power and your access in New York. And then if you go one step further into the billionaire realm, you could buy out a restaurant. So we started to place these places that were either, you know, our favorites, one of our favorites, the new important power place, the legendary place. And it is sad but true that we saw that gusto that Paul went with, and we were writing to it for a while. And I think it kind of culminated, he started to get kind of tired of it because he didn't want to keep eating so much in life. And we decided to try to make the character wrestle with it, but have like a breakdown at Mile End Deli, where he just starts cramming the sandwich in. And then after that, we sort of did more of a gentle like descent for him, where he would like interact with the food in the restaurants, but he wasn't like gorging himself.
Sadly, a sandwich and poutine
Oh yeah, he was shoveling it in.
at Mile End. But yeah, we like seeing actors eat and do the real, we like seeing them really do, when we've always noticed, you know, we've been best friends since we were little kids, and we would watch so many movies together, and you could just tell when someone's faking it and when they're really eating. And if you're gonna do it,
You can tell when they're using like the first take because they take the bite with gusto, but then when it's like the seventh take, they start taking these tiny little bites. So our show, and you had to give this dictate out, and everybody on set would say, on this show we eat.
We eat.
Yeah,
if there's eating in the scene, you're eating.
The champion is David Costabile, though. There is no greater
Wags, yeah.
on-screen eater than Mr. David Costabile.
Yeah.
When we went to Wohop, he ate all the noodles. Like, and they were just, you know, because you're at Wohop and they're delicious, but like no one can eat that.
6 plates worth.
Six plates, just keep, and he's like, keep coming, keep coming. There was a day where he ate I think like 100 hamburgers.
A lot of burgers. Yeah.
I mean, he's committed to the bit beyond anything I've ever seen. It's fantastic.
And think about it, like I looked it up. This is the first, by far I mean, he was in episode 1 all the way through episode 85, 84, 85.
Wags.
84.
Yeah.
Cosby?
All the
He was in
episodes.
every
Yeah,
episode.
I mean, literally I don't think, as an actor, I don't think he's ever had as long a running show. I mean, really, like because he was known for The Wire, he was known for being in lots of
yes.
things, but in much smaller parts. And he will walk down the street now forever. And
Well, we've
have all
seen,
kinds of
I mean, I
crude
said it about
things.
Maffei, but even Wags, even more so. I mean, he's the totem of a lot of those kind of people. And David and I, so Costable and I, that's Wags, we went to college together, and he was the best actor at Tufts. And David and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we went to college together, and he was always somebody that we wanted to see succeed and do well. So the amazing thing that Costable did is, in the first episode, Wags was written very differently. And it was between the first and second episodes, we took him out and we said, we have to do a 180 with the character. You can do it. And he came in with the mustache twirled and all that stuff. And he was like, this is how I think I can do it.
Originally he was like a restrained, like a waspy, fourth generation Wall Street guy. And we said, no, you have to be the id of the place in between this break we had between episodes 1 and 2.
And then he came in and he just owned it and was Wags. And we knew he had it in him. And yes, we're so happy that it helped this guy who's been one of the best actors on earth get to this place now where he's super famous and someone people love.
I mean, it truly has to be extremely gratifying.
We got to put our
know
favorite
that-
actors, Ben Shankman, Glenn Fish, I mean, all over the show are people that we've wanted to work with forever and that we have them. I mean, Eric Bogosian, you know what I mean? All over the show, we got to work with artists that we just love.
Campbell Scott. I just would name people in the room. In the office. I'd be like, I want Michael Cerveris. They'd be like, okay, let's get Michael Cerveris. Okay, let's get Michael Cerveris.
The only person other than the regulars who spoke in every single episode is Daniel Isaac Ben Kim. And there's one episode where he spoke, but he's in every single episode, and he spoke at least a line in every episode. And other than the regulars, he's the only person.
That's so funny. You kept track. Here, I'm going to stop hogging the microphone. And a question from Annette. Thank you, Annette. When do you pick the songs for an episode? After it is complete or during the writing process, the song cues?
Often we put them in the script. I write to music. Like, I have to find, I can't write scenes. My kids will see me sitting on the couch writing these scenes with my headphones on, and if I don't have it, if I can't find what the music feels like, it's hard for me to write the scene very often. That doesn't mean that's always what's going to end up in there, but sometimes, and we both do this a lot, and I'd say the three of us made the show the last 3 years, but the songs, Beth basically tells the whole writer's room, don't put a song in.
Absolutely not.
Every song is just something that the two of us unearth, and that's been the way from the beginning. You know, because we grew up together, we shared record collections, we obsessed about music together, and we are very conscious of how those things work. So we'll script a bunch of it. If it doesn't work, we'll throw it out and find something better, and that happens throughout the course of the thing. We keep lists of songs that people ask how you do this, and so whatever we're working on next, which we're not going to talk about, but we already have a playlist going, and it's all the things that feel like this world to us. And so during the course of it, we'll deploy those things. But you know, you do high five, like when we found Take the Money and Run, and that's in the script, the beginning and the end of this episode, that's scripted. But when we found that together, we were like, that is the perfect thing to send billions out on. And it just feels very satisfying when you come up with that.
It's such a story song too. I mean, it just so works. Let me ask you, was there ever a song that you really wanted but couldn't license?
I don't believe so. You know, we had amazing good fortune licensing stuff. There was one time we wanted to use a Zeppelin song, but we didn't give like enough lead time to Jim Black, who's the music supervisor who does the clearances, because those guys take a long time. They have a long process. I don't know who has to listen to it or watch the show or whatever to decide. But so for the next season, we gave more time and we got it.
Yeah, Zeppelin, all the other people you can send like a script page and a thing, but Led Zeppelin, I think you have to send them thing actually, and you can't change it. And so we worked it out for the next. What's that?
I was just saying, like, the only thing I could think of is that there was a live song in Super Pumped that we couldn't use. We thought we couldn't use because the sound.
Yeah, but we ended up.
Cleaning up because our
Basically
sound
every
guys
song.
are geniuses.
And we did the Zeppelin song the next season. We did in the evening the next season. So
Yeah.
worked it out.
This group did the limited series Super Pumped with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes.
About
which is on
Uber.
Netflix now, and definitely go watch it if you didn't see it before.
Let me ask you, was there a song that you had in mind that never just organically fit in a script? Was there a song that you would have liked to have used, but
One
just
that hasn't made it? I
Yeah.
feel like, man, we had a lot of opportunities and we were pretty thorough. I can't think of one. Do you have one that didn't get in there?
No,
I mean, we even got Blind Willie McTell episode
this season.
8
yeah.
this season.
There was a Dylan song in
Just a
every
deep
single
cut.
season
Yeah.
of the show, which was really important to us to do. And no, the music, I'd say sometimes you really struggle to make it really perfect. But of all the things, the music fell into place usually. We really spend a lot of time thinking about it, and we're able to use the songs pretty much as we wanted to.
it's such a good use of it, where the music like a great musical, it propels the story. It's more than just accoutrement. Like it propels the story.
I mean, some things are just, so people often ask just about the process of how people can collaborate and do this together, but one of my favorite things that happened and it would happen over and over, but it happened in the writing of this final episode. We'll outline and then we write the scenes separately. So like Dave and I wrote the finale and we'll outline the whole thing, but then each of us will take half the scenes and write them. And you'll notice in the episode, Chuck and Axe twice talk about being in a supergroup. Like, I'll be the lead guitarist, and Wag says supergroup, and then they talk about Blind Faith. So that neither thing was in the outline, and each of us wrote those scenes separately. And both of us came up with this idea of those guys as guitarists in a supergroup together. And it just stitched together perfectly and led to the use of that Blind Faith song. And so it just accreted. And that happened, that kind of magical thing happened the whole time we were making the show.
The music geek in me was like, Cream is coming next. Cream, there's gonna be a Cream
Well, it was so
song.
close. It's Blind Faith. It's the same people.
Yes, I know, that's what I was
It's
saying.
the same people.
This is from Nikki and Chris. I don't remember this, so let's see if this is a little bit of Stump the Band here. One episode, you froze the frame and identified what the cast was wearing. What prompted that, and why not again? I honestly don't remember
Yeah,
that.
I do.
That was the burn rate episode. And we had talked to all these billionaires and had gotten a feeling for how much they spent on sort of a daily or weekly basis to keep their whole operation running. And we had it in our heads for a long time that we wanted to break down the expenses to like a granular level, and we all worked on that together.
Oh yeah,
That
I mean,
brutal.
it was really, that was a tough episode because you really are very conscious of how fast the show moves when you decide you're gonna freeze a frame every 3.5 minutes. Like, it's a real shocker for
And
the
let
audience.
people read the price of a Prada sweater or something.
But it was fascinating to us. I just remember the card was up forever. And we were like, no, we'll do burn rate. No, we could do burn rate. And we did it. Sometimes you have to just jump off the cliff and hope you don't fucking die. And we did it. And that last shot in that episode took forever because it had to be almost like a Renaissance painting.
Well, the great thing too is that the in-joke is that last shot is that still frame.
Yeah.
Is shot by Mark Seliger, like the great photographer, who these people would pay to shoot them for $100,000 a day or whatever it is. And so we had Mark come in, and he just did an incredible job of making that thing work because we needed someone who would understand how those people would stand for that kind of photograph.
And the richness of
he's
it.
He's a genius, Mark, like a full-on photographic genius, and you could see. Why and how that
He
worked.
did those
He also did the
huge-
giant
yes.
portraits at Prince's house.
The most amazing character, like little insight into his character, is these massive portraits by Mark Seliger of his wife and his children.
Next to the elevators, yeah.
Well, our time is short here, so I just wanted to say, I feel like a very deserved shout out to Mr. David Nevins.
Oh,
who
agreed.
previously ran Showtime and greenlit this show and took.
Yes, he's a dear friend of ours, and had the faith in the show at the beginning, and we are incredibly grateful to him and all those. Yes, he and Amy Israel and Gary Levien at the beginning were incredibly helpful. But Showtime, I'll say, we're done now. There's no reason to. Showtime's been incredibly supportive the entire time of this show, and the current, right now, the support we've had has been great on the show too.
Awesome. Just want to offer the three of you anything else you'd like to say, leave the audience with here?
I just want to thank people who focused and cared about the show. It made it so rewarding for us, and watching people guess what's going to happen and be wrong so much of the time. It's very satisfying to us. So
Thank you for watching.
all.
Yeah.
And thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for all the support over the years. It means a great deal to us.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, everybody.